Hello, 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 and welcome to another SCOUTCAST brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. As always, you are joined by me, Andy, FPL Mode, and in a week full of failed captaincies and also some violence against people wearing glasses, we are joined by the ever-lovable Hibbo again, and you are back. We missed you last week. How's it going, my man? Yeah, I don't know what you two have been doing. I mean, it's easy to get greens in FPL. Nacho, you were calling it, 8-9 weeks ago, how easy it was to get green arrows. Look at both of you on reds. How's it going?
A good look for me at all. I enjoyed those green arrows next to my name, and yeah, I need to get back on that green train ASAP, Rocky.
As people saying that this is muted, but it doesn't look like it's muted on my computer, so I'm very interested as to why it is muted. So we'll see whether that carries on as the thing goes on. I'm starting to get really annoyed with OBS, and it's starting to be such a temperamental thing to deal with. People are saying they can't hear. Both on
Both
reds
on
and
mute.
both on mute. Let me know if it's is it all of us or is it just them?
No, go back to it. Okay, good now, Andy. You can be heard. Back.
Oh, it's
now.
all back now. Good, cool, lovely
Hello.
stuff.
We back, baby. We back.
Yeah. Basically, we were just introducing ourselves. You haven't missed anything. Don't worry. So, what we're going to be looking at tonight, because we've obviously had, as Hibbo's just said, everything is going very thick and fast at the moment over the Christmas period. So we need to make sure we're preparing you for the weeks ahead. We're going to be looking at some points. So how I got on, how Hibbo got on, how Nacho got on as well. We're going to be looking at talking about Cunha, because obviously one of the massive talking points from the weekend was Wolves' capitulation against Ipswich, and obviously such an important game for them that they did lose. Obviously it meant the end of Gary O'Neill. It also meant the end of any kind of temperament from the Wolves players, who obviously kicked off a little bit. At 8 Nori got sent off, and Cunha just lost his shit basically and started ripping glasses off of everybody that he could see. So we're going to be talking about his ban and what that means for owners. We're going to be looking at the XA over the last 6 game weeks and the XGI over the last 6 game weeks. We're also going to be looking at fixtures, and we've got another fixture graphic from under the radar, which is lovely. We got Captaincy Matrix, our bus team's community team, who were not the top scoring team this week. That was me. And then we're also going to be looking at a bit of a Q&A. I know it's such a massive thing that I had to mention it there and then. People are saying, yeah, we've got tech difficulties. I know. I think it was last week was the only stream we've had where we had no tech difficulties whatsoever. And Hibbo wasn't on. So...
Do you think it's me?
I'm starting to think so, mate. I mean, it's the only thing it can be, isn't it?
People in the chat are calling me Hippo.
Yeah, I think we called you Hippo once before, didn't we?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's have a look at some points. So, my points for this week, I had 61 points this week, which I was incredibly happy with. I thought it was going to be a lot more than that at one point. Flecken in goal with 3, who, by the way, I'm going to say this now, he isn't as bad as people say he is, because he does get an awful lot of save points. So 3 points for him when a lot of keepers are getting 1s or 2s. I'm actually going to take 3 points. Lewis Hall with 15 points with a contentious second assist, but 15 points from Lewis Hall sat there. Extremely happy with 15 points from him there. It's basically the difference between a red and a green for me this week. So yeah, I'll take that. Gabriel came back. The King is back. 9 points, all 3 bonus points. Lovely stuff. Trent... My decision to use my funds from Haaland to get Trent instead of getting Isak has been absolutely awful. And Isak's obviously killed it. And I thought, no, Trent's the one I want. He's just not been doing what I want him to do. So he got me 1 point. Saka with 3. Palmer is my captain. Snuck in an extra bonus point last night somewhere. I didn't realise. Thought he was on 2, ended up on 3, got me 6 points. Salah with 5, Semenyo with 3, Cunha did get me 9 points, got me 3 bonus and a goal, which was lovely. Solanke got an assist and a 5-0 win, got me 5 points, and Wood had a goal chalked off. So this could have been a really mega week for me, especially with the Palmer captaincy not really working. So it's a little bit disappointed, but 61 points, a green arrow of 300k, up to 1.6 million. I'm on the up, lads. literally, I'm on the up. This is it's exactly. I could be back in the top 1 mil before January. I mean, stuff. It's what dreams are made of. It really is. Let's have a look at Hibbo's points. Hibbo, talk us through your points. Not as good a week for you this week, Red Arrow, but obviously easier to come by Red Arrows at your rank.
That's true. So it was 52 points all out for me. So it was a small red from 240k to 250k, which it stings a bit given the moves that I made. So pre-deadline, I had 2 free transfers. And a big consideration was to save and roll the 3 transfers. Now, I saw some news pre-deadline from Paul O'Keefe that Porro's minutes were maybe in question. So there was a bit of talk that Porro wasn't going to start against Southampton. Now, I looked at 2 other Spurs journalists and they kind of confirmed the same. So, I saw 3 Spurs journalists, we predicted the lineup, and none of them had Porro. So, I thought I'm going to jump. And I did Porro and Bumo, De Trent and Semenyo. So, I think this ended up being like a negative 12-point swing and 2 transfers used. So, it's the first time this season that I've made transfers that have stung so badly immediately.
Hurts, doesn't it?
But it could have been worse. It's only a small enough red. But anyway, from back to front for the podcast, people, so I had 3 points from Flecken and goal. As you say, Max, lots of saves. And defence, double Arsenal. So Gabriel had 9, Tamper had 6. Trent, obviously, was just a single point. Palmer was a captaincy blank, but he got 1 bonus point, weirdly enough, at the very death. Salah with the assist and 5. Semenyo and Saka with 3 apiece. And then up top, we have the highly aggressive and possibly banned Cunha. So he had the goal and 9 points. Solanke got an assist and a 5-0 win for Spurs, which is just hugely disappointing. And then Golden Boy, João Pedro, he's just turned to absolute shite recently. He had a 2-pointer. So Michael was my 3rd sub, 7 points. But look, I was never starting him. So no, not a great week. Could have been, say, 12-ish points better. But no, we move.
You were not a favourite person last week when Nacho was talking about you. He is not happy with all your Pedro propaganda, unfortunately.
Honestly, I was expecting Thierry Henry, and I've just got this guy who just does nothing each week. But hey, it will come eventually, I'm sure.
No, well, I think we can touch on it later, but I think we Porro or João Pedro, people can have to temper their expectations and realize like he's a 5-ish million forward. Do you know what I mean? No, but like nobody
be happy with your 2 points,
no.
Nacho. Be happy with your 2 points.
No, don't be happy with your 2 points. But like it's these boys are going to, and we'll touch on it later in the show. I think these boys are going to blank more often than they're going to score. And like if you bought Raul Jimenez or if you bought Wood, and if you bought these boys at the right time and they went on a scoring streak, go and play roulette or go and do the lotto, because that is luck. Like, if you're getting the big points out of like a really cheap player in FPL. But no, it hasn't been great, and I wish it was better, but we move.
Is there I mean, we're going to go on to all this stuff later as well, but I'm going to ask it now. Is there a genuine bit of a worry about Pedro, though? Like, they don't seem to know where to play him, and it's not really working in the system they're playing him in. And we're not getting what we want. I mean, Brighton are one of those teams, they seem to do better in harder fixtures, don't they? So you target them in those nice fixtures, and they're not going to do what you think. And Helen, who's in my community, she's lovely. She's a Brighton fan, and she warned us all before this fixture run, said, these are the games that Brighton don't do well in. And it's literally exactly what's happened. And I'm just looking at it and thinking, he still looks like the bargain out of everybody up top. But it's not happening, is it?
It hasn't been great, but I think we'll be gated, as we often are, by the fixtures. And I think there's still some juice in them. They've got West Ham, they've got Brentford, they've got Ipswich not too far away. Now, I think the beauty of Pedro was for the price, and I'm conscious that I'm meeting on the Nacho's time here, but at the price, he's benchable. You can sit him down against Arsenal if you don't want to play him, or, against Chelsea. So, but I think in the good fixtures, I'll still play him, and I think he's part of what he can do for the greater good of your team. You can still have Palmer, you can still have Saka, you can still have...
Yeah, you're going hot fuzz on us. I like it. The greater good. The greater good. I like it. No, it's fine. It's fine. I get it. Nacho, let's have a look at your greater good. I mean, this was not greater good this week,
we can keep talking. We can just keep talking. We can keep talking.
Finally, this is the Callum that we saw at the beginning of the year. What's gone on, mate?
Mate, honestly, this was just so serious for 1 minute. This is the first game week
Serious.
where I could put my hands up and say, like, I'm disappointed in myself, like properly disappointed in myself, because
I'm not
all the
angry.
other game weeks I've made moves and then I've just been like, what will be will be. Like, I kind of I separate myself from the outcome. This is the first week where I just put my hands up and say, what the hell was I doing? So previous to this, my plan was either to have a Trent team or an Alexander Isak team with 2 free transfers. That was the decision there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've ended up with Anthony Gordon. I don't know what was going on Saturday morning, but I just somehow transferred in Anthony Gordon for Brian Mbeumo, which was a disaster, and sold Dallo for Trent. So just reading through the team quickly, Sells with a 2-pointer, Gabriel with a 9-pointer, Trent, and then of course Nori with -2, which is a 17-point swing when we look at the alternative, which is Lewis Hall. So it's an absolute disaster. The reason why I went for Trent, just a heads up, why I didn't go for Alexander Isak, is because I had Dallo away against City, Anderson red flagged, Vandenberg away against Chelsea, and Gabriel was massively rumoured whether he was going to play. So I had to make a defensive transfer, and I hate Trent. In terms of the midfielders, Saka, Gordon, Palmer, Semenyo, Salah, just whatever, and then Pedro and Cunha up top. So yeah, it's been bad, and the team is just floundering right now. But as you can see, I'm cool, calm, and collected. So I'm ready for this.
Why didn't you go Jacob Murphy? Like, why was that not your top transfer? And you went Gordon. Jacob Murphy got grace, mate. What are you doing?
I don't know what I was doing.
You got 44 points this week. I got 61. So Nori and Lewis Hall. That was the difference. That was that 17 points.
Literally that. Like when I was looking at it earlier, I was just like, I hated Nori beforehand, and he really has like got in the Hall of Fame now for me as just a hatred player.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I mean, Gordon's an interesting one there that obviously you brought in. We were saying though, weren't we, where you obviously, when you hit your wild card and then you had just that streak of it going well, do you feel like this is now where it's now coming to the end of that kind of positivity from the wild card, and now you're having to work quite hard to get the team back to where you want it? Is that where you would roughly say you are, or?
I would say the honeymoon phase is definitely over, correct? Yeah, the honeymoon phase is over. But I just wanted to go. I knew I wanted a piece of that Newcastle team. I just knew it was going to be goals, and I felt like Gordon was a good alternative. And on reflection, I looked at the highlights. On another day, he gets double-digit return, and it's actually a decent result. It felt like a good opportunity, but lo and behold, it was bad. So on to the next game week.
Exactly. And do you know what? I'm going to say this now because it's easy at my rank. I'm going to go on a Callum run after this week.
Here we go, baby.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Here we go.
100%. Yeah, I'm not going to go quite as far as you. I'm going to go for 6 green arrows. So I've had one. I'm going to get another 5.
Amateur hour.
Yeah,
Come on,
I will be 1.4 million after those 5 green arrows, probably. But they still count. Now, talking about the biggest thing that we have been talking about already on this stream is what Cunha did at the weekend. So obviously he kind of elbowed somebody in the back of the head. He stole their glasses, threw them on the floor. Nobody knows what happens to those glasses. I've got no idea whether they're okay or not. But the big question is, will he be available this Sunday? Now, the annoying thing is it's Sunday, so, the deadline's obviously going to go and we're not going to know. But FPL Mark Jobling, who works for Scout, did a little bit of a tweet and looked back at the history of bans. And he said when Kudus had something happen to him, he had until the 24th of October to respond, and his punishment came on the 6th of November. So that was a few weeks after that. Gibbs White had until the 27th of September to respond, and then he received a ban on the 18th of October, so quite a few weeks after that, 3 weeks maybe. And then Benton Kerr had until the 19th of September to respond and wasn't banned until the 18th of November. Now, if I've got it right, I think he's got till Thursday to respond, whether they appeal or whether they don't appeal. I can't see a world in which he's not available to play on Sunday. Based on what we've seen in the history and what we've seen so far and how long it will take and everything, if you've got Cunha, he's obviously got a lovely fixture this week, and then they drop off anyway. He's got a lovely fixture this week. I don't see a world in which he doesn't play this week. Now, Hibbo, I'm going to ask you anyway. If you own Cunha, do you just keep him this week with the risk that it could be the quickest ever turnaround for a ban and then he's not going to play? Or do you sell him, for instance, if you've got the funds, for an Isak, for a Jackson, do you move down to Raul and just get that week in early? Because Raul in particular has a gorgeous fixture against Southampton at home and they're playing well. there are alternatives out there, but he does have a nice fixture. So if you had him, what do you think you would be doing with him?
I think if you had the funds to go to Isak, and you obviously didn't have Isak, then it would be a big consideration. Do you know, like I don't have Isak. I don't have the funds to get there. I can't do it in one move. I've only got one transfer. So, like, in terms of my team, I would be inclined to keep Cunha. Now, I think Mark Jobling makes a good point regarding, when you have to lodge your appeal and when the ban could potentially come. And I think, like, we were talking about this before we came on air. Like, Leicester is probably the best fixture now for Wolves in a long time. After that, they've got Man United, Spurs, Forest, Newcastle, and Chelsea. It gets particularly tough. And I kind of see a world where if Wolves lodge an appeal, now, I don't know on what basis he lodged an appeal because it was borderline GBH, let's be honest. Like, he battered the boy, he elbowed him, and then he pulled his glasses off his face. So I don't know how they frame the appeal. But if I was Wolves, I would lodge an appeal just to play Cunha against Leicester, because very soon the transfer window is going to open and they're going to be able to buy or loan in a temporary forward. So I think maybe they play tactically. But even regardless of that, I think I take your point. If he's maybe found guilty anyway, when's the ban going to come? Is it going to come before Leicester? Personally, I'll take my chances. And if I don't hear by the deadline, I think I'll just roll Cunha out and play him.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Nacho? Because I'm a Cunha owner, and I'm looking at it and thinking, if I can get one more game out of him, and then we find out what happens. Like I said, the fixtures turn then anyway. It just seems a shame with, like I said, players like Raul, Isak, we've mentioned Jackson playing well. It seems like there are some really natural pivots you can go to, but is it maybe 1 week too early?
Yeah, 100%. I think, obviously, if you have Cunha right now, you just keep until we get to the Saturday deadline. Obviously, we hear something prior to that, then happy days. Leicester away. I mean, anybody that's watched Leicester under Van Nistelrooy will know that defensively, they have been absolutely atrocious. So I actually think this fixture is better than that of Nicholas Jackson's away against Everton. And Ipswich, yeah, is probably a good fixture as well. But I think this Leicester fixture is absolutely prime. I don't look at them and think Van Nistelrooy is going to roll out a 1-0 victory against Wolves. And this Wolves team fighting amongst one another felt very much a case like they kind of given up on Gary O'Neill. So we might actually see just a bit more of a revitalised Wolves team in general, even if they don't get the victory. So all that added up, I think Cunha is definitely a keep for this game week, unless he is banned, really.
Yeah. And we've been saying it, we've said it right at the beginning when we were trying to pick between the Wolves strikers. The difference with Cunha as well is he does so much in terms of passing as well that he's getting the bonus. So even though they lost 2-1 and he only got 1 goal, he got the 3 bonus points. And that 9 points is obviously massive when you think about it. And he could obviously still do that at the weekend anyway. And I think he is a hold for me. Unless everything comes forward and he gets banned a lot earlier than we think, I think he's a hold for this week. But Hibbo, you just said it then. You think if you had the money, you would go to Isak this week if you could, would you?
I think it would be a big consideration.
Yeah.
Do you know, looking at Isak and looking at the other kind of top options in the game, I think like Palmer, Salah, Saka, I think Isak's now kind of touching them, and I think once we dive into the kind of XGA data, we'll see him up there. And I think I've went the Trent route, and I think going the Trent route, I think makes a lot of sense because they're more than likely going to have a double game week in 24. So I think that was playing in my mind whenever I brought Trent on at the weekend. But I think I regret it a bit. And Isak is kind of hot. He's on form. And if I had a way of bringing him on this week, I could. So I'm a bit jealous of people that are in that position, I think.
Yeah, he could have got a lot more this week as well, Isak. Let's have a look at the XA table for the last 6 game weeks. So at the top of the XA table from the last 6 game weeks is Timo Werner for XA, and then Son very, very close in second with John McGinn, the only 3 players that are above 2.00 for the last 6 game weeks in XA. Then it's Enzo Fernandez. We spoke about Enzo last week, got another assist this week. Anthony Robinson in 5th, who I'm definitely going to be asking you about. Saka is matching Anthony Robinson. Didn't think I'd say that this year. Mo Salah, Jamie Vardy, Tielemans, and Milos Kerkez up there as well, with Declan Rice, Leif Davis, Cole Palmer, Isak, who is at the top. He's got 1.4 for the last 6 game weeks, and then Jared Bowen. Nacho, I'm going to come to you first, mate, because Anthony Robinson is flavour of the month. 2 assists against Liverpool, who people were not expecting, but obviously Liverpool had that man sent off in Robertson. When we're looking at this then, Anthony Robinson, he's flavour of the month. People are talking about him all over the place. What do you think? Is he essential moving forward?
Well, no, he's not essential, but he definitely has emerged as such a popular pick off the back of what's happened with Ray and Aït-Nouri. So people, obviously with the situation with Aït-Nouri, suspended for game week 17, and it sounds like he still has 4 yellow cards. So once he does come back, he still can get banned once again. So if you own Aït-Nouri, I think selling him is the right move. And naturally, with the price point of him, going to someone like a Robinson, naturally off the back of a great game week is always going to heighten the expectation of a player going forward, like a João Pedro, some may say. And sorry, I had to get that in there. And in terms of Robinson, I just look at his return so far this season and got the 2 assists against Liverpool. And anybody who's played football, obviously against 10 men, the natural space is going to be in those wide areas where he got a lot of joy. So I'm going to look into game week 16 as a little bit of an anomaly. 4 assists prior to that is great, but only 2 clean sheets this season, which is a slight concern. So yes, the fixtures are fantastic, and I do think Southampton at home and Ipswich at home in particular are great, but I don't think Chelsea away and Bournemouth at home are, fantastic fixtures either. So brilliant for game week 17, but I don't think the fixtures are as essential as others are making out, because I still think Bournemouth are a good team, and Ipswich have proved that they can also be in amongst it with goals. So he probably is my number 1 replacement for Aït-Nouri right now at his price point, but absolutely not essential in my eyes.
Yeah, and what do you think, Hibbo? Is he the natural replacement for Aït-Nouri, or are there other defenders you can think about getting instead?
No, I think without a doubt, I think he's a top pick as a replacement for Aït-Nouri this week. I think looking at those numbers, we don't see many defenders in this table. And this season, we haven't seen many defenders. And for him to be so high, the minutes are good. 3 assists, 1.78 XA from left back. Southampton at home, Ipswich at home, and Leicester. Like, if we're going to think about games where he's got the ceiling and games where he could go big, he could get attacking returns. And Fulham, like Leno in defence, they're reasonably tight. It wouldn't surprise you if they got a clean sheet. And I think he's got that big hit and haul potential for the price. Like, realistically, he's going to be maybe your 4th defender. I think if he was your 4th defender, that would be okay.
Yeah, it was interesting as well, because Fulham didn't have their first choice centre-backs available. It was Bassi and Anderson were both out. Although that young lad that came in did really well. Is it Coenza? I don't know how to say his name, because it was the first time I'd ever heard of him. But they genuinely looked good. Obviously, they were playing against 10-man Liverpool, but 10-man Liverpool looked good still anyway. They were still bossing the game in terms of possession and how they played. But I do look at Anthony Robinson with those fixtures coming up. It's hard to back any other defender ahead of him in terms of for his price point. I mean, we've mentioned Kirkes before, Munoz, who we've mentioned quite a few times in terms of their fixtures do take a turn now. And obviously you've got, I invested in Howson not too recently, but Robinson does just seem to be that, there were people talking about him 2-3 weeks ago saying, look out for him for this run. It does seem that natural kind of fit to go there after Aït-Nouri, doesn't it? I mean, Nacho, I've just said the same to Hibbo there. If you didn't want to go to Robinson for some reason, who else would you be going for, do you think?
Well, mention Munoz. That's quite a unique position to be in, but he actually, for me, would be ahead of Robinson in terms of if he wasn't suspended for game week 17, just in terms of the underlying numbers and the way they actually features as a wing back. I think he just has a bit more attacking threat than that of Robinson, but you're only buying Munoz if, of course, you have a strong bench and you can just bench him for this week and then look to play him from game week 18 onwards. Outside of that, I think, like we mentioned, Kirkes at Bournemouth is great. A lot of people talk about Chelsea defenders, like a Levi Colwill as a bit of a safe pick. I still see problems in this Chelsea defence. I still think we give it big chances, and I think it will continue. But I can't ignore the Chelsea fixtures long term. So I don't mind that as a pick if you want to go there, but just be cautious. We do concede a lot of chances.
Yeah. It was really... Go on, carry on.
I find the Colwill pick just very boring.
Yes.
I think essentially we play FPL to be excited in some kind of way by the players that we watch. And I kind of think, I do agree with your point, Nacho, that the Chelsea clean sheets are hard to predict. And whenever you're buying Andy Caldwell, you're not really buying any kind of underlying numbers in terms of his XG or his XA. Like you're basically buying a fairly boring central defender. I find it a hard one to get behind, and I think if people didn't have Robinson, they could get Hall. You know, that Munoz pick is also quite exciting too, but maybe in a couple of game weeks' time, whenever like he has Southampton, Palace going a great run then. So there's some good picks at the price point. I would prefer them to Caldwell, I think.
What I quite like there was a graphic that came up during the Bournemouth game. The Bournemouth game was really boring, by the way, until like the last 20 minutes. But there was a graphic that came up about attacking defenders and the defenders that overlapped the most so far this season. Anthony Robinson was top with, I think, 110 overlaps already this season. Kirkes was in second and Lewis Hall was in fourth. And then there was a load of premium defenders. But I just thought, we've got these cheap attacking, overlapping defenders. Anthony Robinson, Kirkes and Lewis Hall. I mean, with the fixtures they've all got coming up as well, you'd be remiss to own probably two of them going forward, couldn't you? Especially if you're investing in a Trent as well and you've got those funds there. I mean, Kirkes and Anthony Robinson both appearing on this list. It says an awful lot for their XA they're putting up over the last 6 game weeks. So we're lucky. We seem to, 5-6 weeks ago it was all about the cheap attackers, and now it seems to be all about the cheap defenders. But yeah, 8 Nori's probably not going to appear for a lot of us. Moving on to the XGI over the last 6 game weeks, and it is Cole Palmer at the top with 4.71 XGI over the last 6 game weeks. Son is in second, and Isak is in third. Haaland has finally been knocked off this, by the way. He's been on top of this for, I can't remember how long. But those are the only 3 that are above 4.04 XG over the last 6. Then it's Haaland, Salah, Watkins, John McGinn, Liam Delap, Ismaila Sarr, who Hibbo told me to get for another competition I was in, and I did not, and I definitely should have done. Evan Nielsen, Sharda, Madueke, Jackson Solanke, and Pedro round off this list. Isak, Hibbo, we've mentioned Isak before. You've mentioned him already tonight. 4.16 for XGI. This was obviously a prime fixture this week, and he obviously didn't deliver quite as much as he could have done, but he did. If people miss the boat, if they haven't gone for Isak yet, should they still be trying to get back to him? And if they can't get to him in one move, is he hit worthy? Because I'm seeing a lot of people saying that they need to get to this player.
I don't think he's hit worthy, no. I know Ipswich away is a very strong fixture, but you know, after that, you're talking about Aston Villa, Man United, Spurs. As a trio of fixtures, they're kind of tough. You know, and 3 of the next 4 are also away from home. But no, like my kind of key takeaways, I think, from like looking at this graphic this week is I felt like the top 5 are clear. If you know what I mean. Like we have Palmer, Son, Isak, Haaland, and Salah. And like my second takeaway was that Haaland's now dropped down to 4th. You know, so I think this nearly kind of reaffirms our thinking around where we've gone with our teams as managers, because most of us now have jumped off Haaland and we've gone down the route of kind of say Salah, Palmer, Saka, and maybe Trent or Isak. You might be able to afford Bruno in midfield. So we've got those kind of fat squads, and looking at the data now at the top, these players are all up there and they're doing very well, and Haaland's no longer dominant even on underlying data. So I think we're in a kind of space now where Isaac's catching the eye, and we can afford him with a no Haaland team, and it's going to be hard to see how you would flip back to a Haaland team in the future, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's just something I've been giving a bit of thought about. It's like looking at Man City's fixtures, and we'll touch on fixtures later. The fixtures get really good very soon, but I think we've nearly kind of reprogrammed our brains as managers to say, no, well, we like how our teams look now. So I don't think there's going to be such a rush to go and change or reinvent the wheel, I think.
No, I don't think so. It's going to be so hard to get back to him. And I mean, it's talking about going back to players. Nacho, I remember, I think it was 2 weeks ago maybe, you still had Son in your team. And we were looking at it and thinking, you need to get rid of him. Like, you know, this isn't the play you want. The minutes aren't there. He's, you know, second or third in both of these tables. 4.48 XGI over the last 6 game weeks. Hauled in the last game as well. Are you kind of regretting getting rid of him? Do you think he's in your minds as somebody that... He doesn't seem to be on anybody's radar because of those other midfielders we've got. Is that an oversight, do you think?
No, I don't think it's an oversight, because I think the combination of Saka, Palmer and Salah has just been so strong and so template that And I think rightly so, those are the three standout picks. So, no, I don't regret selling Son to Saka, even though Saka has obviously dried up his returns recently. Obviously, Son against Southampton, for me, that is just such a unique fixture. I think any player can look on form in that game. So I really do think that is the fixture. I think any player like Saka plays Southampton next week, then all of a sudden he is the player to buy. So Son for me, I'm looking at the fixtures right now coming up. Liverpool at home, not a great fixture at all. Then we've got Forest away, really tricky fixture. And then a Wolves team at home, which looks great, but who knows under a new manager. And then Newcastle, Arsenal away, Everton away. I mean, Son looks good. There's no way I'll be getting rid of those premiums that we've spoken about to go to a player like that with Europa League and tricky long-term fixtures.
But you've just said it there. Saka's not even on this list. Are they? I mean, unless they're scoring corners, he's not going to get you anything, is he? So surely going to someone like Son is going to be better than Saka.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do get that, but
I'm playing devil's advocate, obviously.
I think it's good though. I think it's always good to look at the other end because I think we've, similar to last season where it was Haaland, no other alternative. We've kind of reprogrammed ourselves now where we're just like it has to be a combination of Saka, Palmer, and Salah. So I think eventually we're going to get to a point where one of them is going to start to be a little bit off, and we have to ask the question whether moving away is the right thing, like a Bukayo Saka. But again, you look at the fixtures coming up. You got Ipswich at home, Brentford away, Brighton away. All these teams that leak goals. I think we're going to see that turn again for Arsenal in attack, and I think it will come over the next 4 or 5 game weeks.
Yeah, definitely.
Just a wee bit of a point in Son. I think like anybody that had Son was obviously going to hold him for Southampton. Do you know? Like him scoring points against Southampton was obviously great for owners. It was obviously very predictable. But the main problem with Son is that his minutes have been patchy. Like if we look at, I think his last 7 starts, he was subbed off in 4 of them. And he started on the bench away to Bournemouth, I think, and he came on as a sub. So the Son boys can go out and they can punch the air and celebrate getting 14 points or whatever against Southampton. Great for them. But they've been bailed out a bit by that in reality because I don't think he has been a great pick. I think they've got kind of lucky in the fact that Arsenal went a wee bit off the boil in terms of Saka and in their attack. And I think that's kind of flipped the narrative a wee bit coming on this week. And I think anybody that has Son will probably be consider selling them soon.
So what about if you're a Maddison owner? Are you a good manager if you're a Maddison owner? Because he is, again, he's killed it. He's absolutely killed it, but his minutes are all over the place. So what if you're a Maddison owner? Because he's done better than Son. And he when he's played, he's done ridiculously well.
I think minutes are king, and it's Maddison kind of drifted out of form and drifted out of Ange's thinking and drifted out of the team. And I think in that position, it's hard to own that player.
Yeah.
And if somebody did own that player who's like a very suspect minutes risk, I wouldn't consider that to be good play. And I think you always want to try and move away from those players, despite the outcome. He's obviously smashed it. 18-pointer or whatever against Southampton, Maddison. But again, it's kind of hard to own at the minute because of unpredictability. And now, I think as Nacho said, the good fixtures have kind of drifted away and it's maybe time to kind of disembark Spurs and move a different direction. And I think we'll see that now. I think we'll see people coming off Son. People don't really own Maddison, so...
Yeah, and when we look at the fixtures here, I mean, Nacho's mentioned them quite a few times already. So these are the next 6 game weeks, and this is filtered by difficulty. So you can get this on the Scout members area. It's one of the tabs I use the most, especially with the fact that you can change it around. You can get rid of weeks and things like that. It's absolutely brilliant. So Chelsea are top. I feel like about 5-6 weeks ago, it was constantly Ipswich at the top, and it feels like it's constantly Chelsea at the top now. But Chelsea's fixtures are just insane moving forward. So Everton away, Fulham at home, Ipswich, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, Wolves, all in the next 6. Fulham are second, which is why there's such a clamour to get Anthony Robinson, why Raul Jimenez is back in our minds as well. So they've got Southampton, Bournemouth and Ipswich all at home in the next 4 game weeks, which is, in terms of, it couldn't get much better, really, especially with Southampton and Ipswich being in there. Southampton in 3rd, Man City, Liverpool, Man United, Newcastle, all there, and Arsenal as well. Then down the bottom, we got Brentford, Ipswich, Everton, Aston Villa, Leicester, and Spurs. Nacho, I'm going to come to you first because Fulham are in 2nd here. We've already mentioned Anthony Robinson. If you wanted to really go for it, with those fixtures coming up, Southampton, Bournemouth, Ipswich, all at home, and Chelsea, who do concede goals, like you just said, if you wanted to get some Fulham assets, who would be top of your list, do you think?
Yeah, so I think firstly, a player that is absolutely an alternative to Robinson could be Anderson at 4.2 million. So it's a reason why some managers are maybe a little bit hesitant to go to Robinson, because if he is confirmed to be available and we're expecting him to be close, that is a real cheap defender that I think some managers have to have on their radar going forward if you can't afford Robinson. So I think Anderson, nice alternative. I think the big one, of course, is Raul Jimenez. We spoke about him, how he is a great option when he does play. The only problem is it's the minutes. So I'm just taking a look at the minutes right now. He played back-to-back 90s in game weeks 8 and game weeks 9. Since then, it's been 72, 74, 70, 77, 78, 67. And Muniz come on against Liverpool and scored. Now, I'm not one of those that thinks, oh my God, Muniz is now going to start. I still think Raul Jimenez is firmly the main man for Silva to start, but we have too much information here over the opening 16 game weeks to have a pretty solid conclusion that if you own Raul Jimenez, you cannot be surprised that in game week 17, 18, 19, he plays a combined 180 minutes. That is absolutely plausible over that period. And is that enough for those fixtures to go for Raul Jimenez? Absolutely, because they are brilliant home games. But we do need to have the caveat of Raul Jimenez that minutes are not his thing. You are basically getting him in for the underlying numbers that they are good when he plays. So I do like Raul Jimenez as a Cunha alternative, but people need to obviously dampen their expectations on his overall minutes.
You got any love for Iwobi, Nacho? I know you you love a greased up muscly man, don't you? We spoke about Adama Traore not that long ago. Any love for Iwobi?
I'll tell you, if Adama was still starting, I mean, that guy. I wish. Maybe both.
Focus.
No, Iwobi. Sorry, I'm all over the shop now.
Yeah.
Sorry. Iwobi for me, no. I just don't think Iwobi does enough for me. I think I'd much rather go cheaper for those Enzo or Ahmad picks.
Oh,
personally.
You've just stolen my next lead into what I was going to ask Hibbo.
No.
Hibbo. Chelsea top, Man United in 6th in this. Man United obviously just unbelievable win at the weekend for a United fan like myself, and obviously awful for City. This spiral continues. But Chelsea have Enzo, Man United have Ahmad, both doing very, very well at the moment. I mean, Ahmad's goal was just beautiful, and he's doing so well in terms of the underlying getting forward. If you had to pick one of the two for this fixture run that's coming up, Man United, by the way, Bournemouth at home, Wolves away, Newcastle at home, Liverpool away, not as nice as it seems on the fixture ticker, but then Southampton and Brighton in 21 and 22. If you had to pick one or the other, Ahmad or Enzo, which one would you be picking?
Tight decision, hey? Tight decision. I think I would consider picking Enzo.
Ooh. Why?
I don't know. Ahmad feels a wee bit flash in the pan, and I know Rashford has. It looks like Rashford's essentially going to leave Man United because there's some quotes about him wanting a new challenge. He was obviously dropped by Amarin, and so was Garnacho, which was a very bold call, I think. And then they obviously won the game, which kind of justified his decision. But I think I really like Chelsea's fixtures. I think with Enzo, he's taking some set pieces at times, and like Nacho can correct me here, at times he's playing as an 8, sometimes he's playing as a 10, and I do like it. Enzo on this Chelsea system, what I see of him, he's kind of arriving as like a late runner in the box. I feel like his minutes are a wee bit more secure for me than Ahmad. Do you know, over a period of time, I think we've seen Enzo as a fairly locked starter in that team, whereas Ahmad, could he drop out at some point in the future? Could he be subbed off? I do think that could happen. And like for me, if we're going to go down the route of minutes are king, so are fixtures. And for me, I'll go Enzo.
Yeah. I mean, Nacho, it was surprising there because obviously you're the Chelsea fan and you were very surprised Hibbo picked Enzo. Is that because you're an Ahmad believer?
Well, I do like Enzo, absolutely. And he is definitely changing his positioning in this Chelsea team. So we could see the introduction of Lavia again in game week 17, which could again slightly change the direction that this team's going to go in. But I think whether we play Caicedo in the middle or we play Lavia alongside Caicedo and Caicedo inverts from the right back role, I think Enzo, regardless, does become that guy who is going to be the third man runner into the box. So I think Enzo, regardless, is going to be minutes monster over this period. And I think, of course, being on set pieces, I think he probably is the logical pick. But I'm just looking at it right now with Man United. I'm looking at the team that featured, obviously, against Man City. And I do feel like Amorim is just trying to get players in who he can trust and are actually going to fight for the badge. And Mason Mount went off injured. We're expecting him to be out for a bit of time now. Garnacho out of favour and Rashford now looking to leave the club. So I don't see where Ahmad's minutes really get rotated personally in this front three. I think it's going to be Højlund down the middle with Xerxes stealing some minutes. I think Mazraoui and Dalot are going to be those wing backs. I might be wrong. So I think Ahmad at 5.2 million is going to be a starter in this Man United team. And when I look at the fixtures coming up for Man United, I mean, Bournemouth at home, I don't mind. Wolves away now might be a bit trickier, but then Newcastle at home, they lead goals. Southampton at home in 21, Brighton in 22. I mean, I'd probably be tempted to chase Ahmad myself.
I like it. I mean, so basically, Enzo Fernandez and Ahmad seem to be two of the players you want to get to if you're looking for a budget. But Hibbo, does this mean the end of players like Rodgers and Semenyo? Because Bournemouth have got Man United away, but then they've got Crystal Palace at home, they've got Everton at home, and then it kind of takes a bit of a dip in 21 onwards. Villa have got not very nice fixtures for the next two, Man City at home, Newcastle away, but then they've got Brighton, they've got Leicester. Do you think there's going to be a pivot away from players like Rodgers and Semenyo? And because you're freeing up funds moving to Ahmad and Enzo, do you think that's what people are going to be doing? And do you think that's a good move?
It feels like a luxury move. Like, I think if you're dropping down from, I know it was a popular move this week where people went from, say, in Bumo, and they dropped down to say, Enzo, you were freeing up a certain amount of usable cash there, whereas I think going Rodgers to Ahmad or Rodgers to Enzo, it's very small margin stuff. So I don't think you're saving that much money. Now, I think you make a good point with Villa because they've Brighton and 19, Leicester, so 2 home games, and then they've got Everton. There's 3 nice fixtures, but I think the thing with Rodgers is, and I think it's a thing people have to understand, we've talked about it since day one. I think he's the 8th attacker, and he can be benched. You know, like, people don't have to be playing him. And in fact, I think if you have a team where you're playing Rodgers every week, you're suboptimal. I don't care. I'm going to say it now. But I think Semenyo is in a similar position. United away isn't the best fixture, and he's maybe nursing a slight hamstring strain now because he went off early. But then Palace at home, Fulham away, Everton at home. As the 3 of those fixtures are okay. So I think for the near term, I don't think anybody has to be overly worried about both. But yeah, I think Ahmad and Enzo provide alternatives that are a wee bit more exciting. They're a wee bit more differential. They have those better fixtures, and they could help you climb rank. Like, I'm pretty hot in Enzo. I'm surprised that I had to weigh up at the weekend going down from Bumo to a midfielder, and I picked Semenyo, and I kind of regret not going for Enzo, if I'm totally honest.
I was going to ask Nacho about Semenyo as well, because I watch Bournemouth quite a bit. I still think Semenyo's great, but it's not happening at the moment. And Hibbo said just there, you know, it's given me a little bit of feeling of when everybody gave up on Mbumo 2 weeks ago. And everybody said, no, he's playing wide. He's not the talisman anymore. What's he done? Scored 23 points in the last 2 weeks. And it just feels like Semenyo's going to do that. He still had shots against West Ham. He still looked good at points. He was still getting the ball in good positions. Obviously, Utara came in. And, you know, I still feel like Semenyo's a good pick, but it doesn't seem to be working. And it seems to be like, if it was you, how do you know when to change from, say, a Semenyo to an Enzo and an Ahmad that are flavour of the month? Do you do it? Do you chase it and chase, you know, price changes? Or do you just think, no, I'm going to stick with a player I know is good?
Yeah, I think that's always it, really. Sometimes you've got to hold your nerve with a player, but you also need to understand when you might be in a bit too loyal towards a player. So someone like Semenyo, his numbers are always fantastic, but the problem is with Semenyo, for example, is when you really deep dive into some of them. So the shots per 90, for example, hover around 3.54. But when we actually look at the shots on target, those sort of shots hover below 1. So even though shots per 90 look great, if he's having 1 shot or less per 90 on target, then I mean, it's all well and good having 4 or 5 shots, but you can't score if he isn't hitting the target. So for me, I'm looking at Semenyo right now, and it is just poor viewing. 10-pointer against Man City in game week 10. Other side of that, it's just been blanks galore. Yes, he is good for minutes, but I just think he is one of those that looks fantastic. He will at times obviously get those returns, but I don't think we should be attaching our loyalties to Semenyo myself. I think the fixtures are a problem because there is a good fixture every other week. So you could bench him this week, home against Palace, Fulham, Everton at home. And I feel like before you know it, you're going to blink. It's going to be the new year and you've still got Semenyo in your team. So players like Semenyo, I think you just got to accept that when you cut your ties, it is what it is afterwards. And you hope you're bringing in a better player for the foreseeable. And for me, Semenyo selling is a bit of a luxury move, but I don't mind it to free up funds to an Enzo or an Ahmad.
One thing I will say as well about Bournemouth, they score more late goals than anybody else in the league at the moment. So they score an awful lot of goals from players like Utara, Enes Unal, coming on, scoring goals. They did it against West Ham. And Semenyo went off at about 65 on Monday night. And I'm just looking and thinking, I think that's going to happen more and more. Obviously, it's a bit different because Tavernier got injured, didn't he? So obviously there's a few less positions there to cover. But I think it was Brooks that came on for him. And I thought it would be Brooks coming on for Utara, but it happened the other way around. But I'm just looking at that and thinking, they seem to be scoring a lot of late goals. And whether Semenyo's even going to be on when they're scoring all these late goals is obviously not ideal. But I'm looking at those fixtures with United and with Chelsea and just thinking, I know it sounds luxury, but obviously for me, I'm looking at Cunha this week and I thought that was going to be my move. Now I'm thinking, could I move to an Enzo or an Ahmad? And it's definitely playing on my mind with the way that Semenyo's playing or Bournemouth are playing. But also, it does just remind me a lot of Mbumo from 3 weeks ago when everybody said, no, you got to move off. And look what happened. So it is an interesting one there. And I wanted to bring up this graphic as well from Under the Radar because they do so many amazing graphics, by the way. You really do need to follow them if you don't. They've only got about 6,000 followers. They should be on about 20,000. So they've got a graph here that shows attacking and defensive fixture difficulty for game week 17 to 21. So basically, they've got along the one axis, they've got total clean sheet probability. Along the bottom axis, it's opponent accumulated XGC. So what we're looking at, if they are in the top right-hand corner of the graph, they have both good attacking and defensive fixtures from game week 17 to 21. If they're in the top left, then it's only good defensively. Bottom right is only good attacking, and bottom left is none of those. So in the bottom left, you've got teams like Leicester, Spurs, Ipswich, Brentford, Everton, Southampton, Brighton, Bournemouth, and Forest. And interestingly, that Bournemouth are in there. Top right, though, Fulham, we've spoken about Fulham quite a lot. It's more favouring attacking than it is defensive, but Fulham are there. Then you've got Newcastle, Man United, you've got City, Liverpool, Palace, Chelsea and Arsenal, all in that top right-hand corner. Now, Hibbo, I think this is a great graph. I really like this, especially the fact that it's not using the FDR rating from the Premier League, because that can sometimes be really deceiving. This is literally based on the teams that they're facing, their XGC and the clean sheet probabilities for the next 5 game weeks, whatever it is. Is there anything here that stands out for you with teams that we haven't mentioned or players that you think you could probably invest in based on this?
I'm just going to say the really obvious thing.
Yeah.
Top right-hand corners, good teams with good fixtures.
Yeah,
you know, we've got Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, and then United and Newcastle, who are both coming into a bit of form. Obviously, United with a new manager, Newcastle on a bit of a bounce now compared to where they were at the start of the season. So I think the picks from those teams are fairly kind of telegraphed. We know who we want. At the minute, Man City, it's hard to invest at all, despite the fact that I know like we're looking at their fixtures, and I think I was looking at their fixtures earlier, and if we look, it's basically from game week 18, they've got Everton at home, Leicester away, West Ham at home, Brentford away, and Ipswich away. So like that's a really hot streak, but like I've touched on that already, where we're basically saying, well, if you invest in Man City, it's almost Haaland or bust. And now that we've basically kind of ripped up our teams to go out, Haaland, and we kind of feel the benefits of that kind of thicker squad, I don't think we go back there. But I think the team that have kind of caught my eye have been Palace, because they don't have good fixtures immediately. Their fixtures really pick up from kind of game week 19. And then I think Eze and Matera, they're two options that I think particularly Eze, we'd expect them to do good for minutes. There's a fair chance that he's on pens, although there was a bit of kind of trading of those with Matera. So, no, I think they're kind of, if I'm going to say team that are like one to watch, that would be, I think, Crystal Palace out of all those teams.
And Tyreek Mitchell got an assist at the weekend.
Tyreek Mitchell, and you've invested in Crystal Palace, obviously, and so rare. And I think they're a good team to get on at some point in the future, because like we're looking at those fixtures, and if we're looking at them coming up, they've got Southampton at home, Chelsea at home, then it's Leicester, then it's West Ham, and that's from game week 19. So no, I think it gets good for Palace for a long time, and I think their players are so much off the radar. I think Nacho's already touched on Munoz. We could start to see a bit of Palace creep onto teams over the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think so. Nacho, Man United here on this list. We mentioned Ahmad already. Have you got any love for Højlund as a potential replacement for say Cunha next week, or potential replacement for Solanke, who obviously we see Spurs that are not looking good on this table? Any love for him at all?
Yeah, I haven't even had Højlund on radar personally. That's probably because I'm still just trying to get him up right now to see in terms of what his most recent numbers have been. And I think that's probably testament to where my thoughts are on him right now. 6.9 million, an easy sideways move from Cunha. But I'm looking at his minutes since Amorim's come in, 78, 90, 77. So that would suggest that he probably is Amorim's main man up front. And I look at the numbers right now. The problem with Højlund is when I invest in a player, I just need to have that little bit of feeling that he can do the business. And I just don't think in a Man United shirt I've seen that with Højlund. So sometimes 1.8%, you don't always have to be the first person on a player. And I think this is the perfect example. I think it is, you could go there, you could get lucky over these next fixtures, but I think it's just the best move with Højlund just to let it happen over the next few weeks. And if he does do fantastic in the next 2, you know he's not going to hurt you in terms of overall rank. And it's giving you that little bit of period just to understand, okay, this guy is actually an FPL option for us now. But with the other forwards available in the game, I just don't know how you can go to Højlund as your replacement. So I think we just sit tight, monitor him, let the Newcastle and Liverpool games happen in 1920, and then look back in 21.
Yeah, solid advice. I mean, I look at it. I think there is something there with Højlund under Amorim with this system. I feel like it seems to be happening in Europe a hell of a lot more than it's happening in the Premier League. But it does seem to be kind of suiting his way of play. The thing I've got, I think, with United is I can't see us scoring more than 2 goals in a game most of the time. So if you're looking at that, he's not a Salah, he's not on penalties. So it's going to be tough for him to get those consistent returns. It's not like a Jackson for Chelsea where you're scoring 4 or 5 goals some weeks. So that's my other biggest thing with him. And he does go off for Xerxes quite often. So I do think that's a little bit of a worry. But he is first choice, like you said. I'm pretty sure he is now. So, but I think there's a lot of other strikers I think I'd want to sign ahead of him if I was making a move. And you've got those players like even Raul Jimenez with us thinking you could only get 2 of the next 3. 2 of those next 3 could be Southampton and Ipswich. So I think it's the way I would want to go personally. Looking at the captaincy matrix though, and this is from our friend Lego Mane over at Blue Sky. Thank you very much, because according to Hibbo, he made this specially for us. So thank you, Lego Mane. We're looking at Gameweek 17. It's not rife with captaincy options for the first time in a while. Last week was the week where we were saying, here we go. Salah and Palmer obviously didn't do a lot, but Haaland's got Villa. We got Saka against Crystal Palace. Salah away to Spurs. Watkins to Man City, although I don't think he'd be going Watkins now. Son, Liverpool. Palmer, Everton. Isak, Ipswich. And then Fernandes against Bournemouth. Hibbo, straight away, where are you thinking for captaincy?
Oh, we like to do this, don't we? We like to kind of go, what's my top 3? So my top 3 is a bit influenced by who I own. So what I will say is I'll go Salah, number 1.
Yeah.
Isak, number 2. And Palmer, number 3.
Ooh.
Now, what I will say about this week is I think it looks prime for a punt. And I think if you're in a position where like you maybe do have Isak, I obviously don't have Isak. But it looks like he could maybe take the game on a wee bit, I think, this week, because Spurs for Salah is like I think it's going to be an open game for Salah. That's why I'm backing Spurs. I think defensively they've been weak. I think historically we see that's a fixture that Salah does do well on. I think when we look at what he's done this season in terms of his actual returns and his underlying numbers, I think both have been spot on. And it's a case for me, if in doubt, go with the best option. And that's why I would pick Salah this week. But fixture-wise, I think Ipswich away is probably a better fixture on paper, but whether Isaac's as good a candidate as Salah remains to be seen. I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's Salah for me. Salah's top by quite a way, but I think if you weren't going Salah, I think Isak's the second option. I mean, Nacho, what are you thinking at the moment?
Oh, I am like, for me, Salah's so far clear this week is ridiculous for me. I'm just looking at the Spurs team that featured against Southampton. Now, I didn't get to watch the game in fully, but from what I've heard, Southampton could have scored goals in that game as well. Obviously, a little bit. The scoreline, obviously, they probably did. Obviously, just like allowing to come on to them eventually. But I mean, look at this defense: Udogie, who went off injured, Gray, Dragusin, and Spence. So Udogie went off, so Pedro Porro is going to be featuring. I just think it's a no-brainer. I just think Mo Salah against the Spurs team, who at home conceded 4 goals against Chelsea. For me, it's just a no-brainer. It's Mo Salah 100% in this game. And I do think he will come up with the goods. I think Liverpool are far too strong for Spurs. And I could see a bit of a goal fest at Spurs this weekend.
Yeah. Do you know, it's really interesting. Look at this graphic, by the way. I was just going to mention this, and it was mainly to you, Hibbo, because I know you said about Isak. I know he's got Ipswich away this week, but then in 18 he's got Villa at home, 19 Man United away, 20 Spurs away, and then it looks really good from 21 onwards. We've got Wolves, Bournemouth, Fulham all at home, and Southampton away.
Yeah,
I think there's a case to say that if you can't get to Isak this week, you just wait until 21 now and make sure you've got a way of getting him in 21. Because I'm just looking at it there and thinking, you're not going to captain him in 18 to 20 because obviously you've got Saka, you've got Salah, you've got whoever else, you've got Palmer as well. I think there's a case for waiting, isn't there? I mean, I could say this, Man United can concede, Villa defensively aren't great this year, and Spurs obviously aren't great this year either. So maybe I'm going to eat my own words here, but I feel like there is a case for, if you can't get to him for free very easily this week, you just wait, don't you?
Yeah, and I think we did touch on that earlier, and I think if it's a case that you're in a position where the only way to Isak is by taking a -4, I don't really agree with it because, as you say, that Ipswich fixture is lovely. Is he the number one captain pick? No. Do you know, I think like people in the chat they're kicking off a bit because they're basically saying Spurs have no defenders, and Nacho's obviously made that point too. I think they've got Dragusin, they've got Porro, they've got Gray, they've got Spence, they've got
great
the wall and nets. What do you call him? Forrester. He's terrible. So you would expect Liverpool to do well against Spurs. The only reason I say is like in terms of fixtures, like Ipswich is just like I see those relegation teams as fodder. But the chances are like most people are going to go with Salah captain. So like for me, if I hypothetically bought Isak for a -4, I'm not going to captain him this week. And I do agree that next 3, I don't think it's easy by any stretch, and 2 of them are away from home. So I think anybody that's kind of made their bed with Trent, which is what a lot of us have done to lock ourselves out of Isak, you're staying there. Do you know, because the next fixture for Liverpool is kind of a wee bit tricky. Well, they're away to Spurs, but from a clean sheet perspective, it's kind of tricky because Spurs could obviously score, but then it gets really good for Liverpool. Like you're talking Leicester, West Ham. United's not great. They've got Forest, they've got Brentford. So I think from a clean sheet perspective, things will start to pick up, the double game weeks in the horizon. So anybody in the same boat as me, I think the proper advice would be stick to what you've got. If you had an easy route to Isak, you could do it given the injuries to the forwards that we've talked about, possible ban for Cunha, etc. If you've got Solanke stinking up a team, if you've got money, do it maybe, but doing it for a hit, no, I would say no, personally.
Leicester at home for Liverpool in 18. I seem to remember Trent getting a 24-pointer against Leicester at home, but that was a little while ago, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it was, wasn't it? 3 assists and a goal?
It was maybe Boxing Day, or it was round about Boxing Day.
That was back when it was like Pereira and Chilwell and all that lot for Leicester, wasn't it? Yeah, that was great, that was. Just very, very quickly, Nacho, before I move off this, because I've just seen, obviously, Watkins has some nice fixtures in 19 and 20. It's not actually Watkins I'm going to ask you about. It's the other really left field pick, which is Duran. Is he on your watch list at all now?
No.
Fair enough.
No, he isn't. Only because, like, Ollie Watkins is just... we know Emery absolutely loves him. I know there is a little bit of an indifferent period for Watkins, but we just know if Duran comes in, all it takes is one bad game and Watkins is coming straight back into that team. So if Watkins gets injured, oh my God, like Duran's going to be in everybody's team. But until that day happens, I think Duran's just one of those that is going to keep popping off. We're going to love the thought of owning him, but I just don't think the time will ever be there to own him this season.
He's got the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer curse, hasn't he? Where he's too good as an attacker, as a sub. So he's kind of, that's where he wants to use him. But he's scoring a goal every 70 minutes at the moment. So he's definitely got some pedigree to come in and do something. Right, let's have a look at some bust teams then. So I have got about 0.2 in the bank, and I have one free transfer. I've got Flecken in goal. He's playing Forest at home. Fancy something there, maybe. Hall, who's playing at the back at the moment with Gabriel and Trent. Stop laughing, Hibbo. Then I've got Saka. Palmer as captain at the moment, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be on Salah. And then Semenyo. And then I've got Cunha, Solanke and Wood up top with Lewis, Rogers and Howson on the bench for me. I'm not feeling like this is a massive week where I don't feel like this is going to be a high-scoring week. I'm still not in love with having Solanke up top either, and Semenyo's kind of sticking out a little bit for me too. I was going to start looking at maybe moving Solanke down to someone like a Pedro, even though he hasn't been great, and then freeing up the funds to be able to move Cunha to Isak. But just looking at that there, I'm just thinking, do I need to do that so early? But I will have to move Cunha on eventually, and probably after this week because his fixtures obviously take a massive turn. Semenyo's still kind of sticking out there, but his fixtures aren't too nice after this week. I kept Lewis, and I feel like actually, Hibbo's already mentioned Man City's nice run for 3-4 game weeks. So I'll probably play Lewis in most of those games. So I'm looking at this and thinking, there are some moves I can do. I could roll if I wanted to. What do you two think? Because if Cunha was banned, it was who was I going to move Cunha to? And I was like, do I move him to Raul Jimenez? Do I move him to someone cheaper than that? But I'm looking and thinking, I'll probably keep Cunha this week, and then it's what move do I do? So I haven't thought about it massively, but Semenyo or Solanke are two that I'm thinking could probably go. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think the Cunha thing obviously completely dictates the decision making this week. I think Semenyo, I think the way Man City are right now, I think Rodgers is absolutely fine as a player to come in for you if you need it this week. So if Semenyo does have a slight knock, if there was something going on with that early substitution, I don't think you're in a desperate need of making a transfer to bolster your team. I think Rodgers at home against Man City, like, would I be surprised if Villa score a couple of goals against them? Absolutely not. And I think Rodgers' game time's good. So I don't think your team's actually desperate for a transfer, to be honest with you. I think you're in an okay spot. I think it just comes down to this Cunha situation. That's going to force everybody's hand this week. But no, I think the team was good, mate, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Annoyingly.
I was going to say as well about Lewis. I think City are the early kickoff for 3 of the next game weeks, so I could know whether Lewis is playing, which is brilliant, really. So I will know whether to bench him or not, which is quite nice. Hibbo, anything about mine before we move on to yours?
There's maybe an argument that you would sell Solanke, I think.
Yeah.
If I look at your team, I think like you've touched on it, but like the 2 weak points for me this week are Solanke and Semenyo. Semenyo's got a bit of life in him because we've obviously talked about fixtures and they look okay in the mid-term, near-term. But I think Solanke could maybe go down at some point.
Yeah. Solanke's the one, but the thing is, I don't think I can move from Solanke to Jackson because Solanke's a lot cheaper than Jackson. And it's who I move to. And I'm really not high on Jimenez because of because of the chance of rotation with him. So Solanke's 7.5. Yeah, so I can't move to Jackson. So
how many transfers?
Just one.
That's probably a save. I think the new version of FPL is basically if you have one transfer, you save.
Yeah.
It kind of feels that way.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to your team then, Hibbo. Talk us through yours, because yours, I mean, it's incredibly similar to mine. What are you thinking about doing?
You copy me, but you copy me like 2 weeks after I get the points. So...
Whoa. Wow. You've been keeping that inside you, haven't you?
Buddy, I'm only joking. I love you, really. I've got one free transfer. I've got 0.2 million in the bank. So that makes me kind of think that my default position is to save. So really, from back to front for the pod, people, Flecken at home to Forest. I'm the same as you, Andy. I like this week. Famous last words. Milinkovic will probably score a header. And defence, we've got double Arsenal away to Palace. don't mind it. While Trent is away at Spurs. So this is kind of his worst fixture for a while. Then it gets really good for Trent. And hopefully that kind of justifies the reason why I bought him. In midfield, we've got Salah boss team Cap away at Spurs. We've got Palmer at Everton, Saka at Palace, and Semenyo at United, which doesn't look great. In many ways, I wish I still had Bumo, which I don't. Up top, I've got Solanke at home to Liverpool, Cunha at Leicester, if he plays, and João Pedro at West Ham. So thoughts are Solanke stinks. I can't get the Isaac for free, and to a certain extent, I feel exposed this game week, but I don't really mind 3 game weeks after. So do you take it on the chin, not take the -4? Like, you boys know me as a player. I haven't taken a -4 this season, and I actually plan on going through the season without taking a -4. That's kind of unwritten thing that I'm doing. I could go down to Raul Jimenez and bank the cash. He's got Southampton at home. He puts money in the bank for me, and he gives me wriggle room to fix the kind of ugly spots in my team going forward. Rodgers and Makalenko on the bench, neither have good fixtures this week, but they're starters, so I don't mind it. So, for me, it's more than likely a save or Solanke to Jimenez. I think the team's overall good, apart from Semenyo and Solanke this week.
Yeah. No, I think it's very similar to mine, and you've got the same thoughts about me. It's interesting you didn't mention. Do you think there's a world where you get rid of Semenyo this week?
Depends. It came off early enough. I think you touched on it earlier in the pod where he came off with tightness, I think it was dubbed. And the tightness, we'll see how it develops. If Areola gives us a kind of steer to say, look, he's potentially injured, that will be a worry coming into a tight period at Christmas where games kind of come thick and fast. If that happened, I would maybe consider selling. And if that happened, it would be maybe a Madden, Enzo, or somebody of that ilk on me thinking. But I think for now, we just roll to get closer to the deadline. We see what information comes in. And I think for now, it's a roll transfer for me. But I'm open to that option, let's say.
Yeah. And Nacho, talk us through yours, my man. This is starting to look quite red.
It's very red. And the worst thing about it is I made my transfer for a player who is red. So you'll see at the bottom right, Munoz. So I knew he was suspended. So it wasn't one of those moments where I brought him in and thought to myself, what have I done? He's not in the team. So what have I done? Okay, so let me talk through my thought process. Aït-Nouri, once that red card happened, he was done. He was never staying in my team ever again.
Going to have a field day here, by the way.
I was predicting a double price fall for him. We got the assistant manager chip come in. I've got 0 team value. I cannot allow myself any other players.
Got to spend that money on Eddie Howe, mate.
I need Eddie Howe. So I couldn't allow any more price changes in my team, and Munoz was predicted to go up in price. What happened? Munoz didn't rise in price. So let me just talk through my thought process right now. Anderson, I'm hoping will be available. And I couldn't bring Robinson in because I already had Anderson. Like, what player has double Fulham defense? So that wasn't going to happen. And I'm kind of like a bit of a stockbroker. Like, I invest for the future, and I felt like Munoz's stocks are going to rise as we progress. I want him from game week 18 onwards regardless. He's the defender I want. So I brought him in. And Vandenberg, you boys spoke about Brentford getting a clean sheet, will just come in like a knight in shining armor if Anderson doesn't feature this week. So we're all good. We're all good defensively. So I'll just read through this magnificent team. Fabianski at home against Brighton.
You're playing chess, this is, isn't it?
Honestly, boys, this is how I get myself back into the top 100k. So Fabianski in goal. Anderson, he'll come in and he'll score. Alexander-Arnold away against Spurs. Gabriel away. And then we've got Saka, Gordon. Don't know how that's happened. Palmer and Salah, of course, for the Cap C. Vissa, who has been my MVP all season at home against Forest. João Pedro, less said the better. And then Cunha away against Leicester. If Cunha is out, then I am going -8. Cunha to Alexander Isak and Gordon down to Ahmad. And I'm just getting it done.
Oh, I love this. This is like implosion time from you at the moment. What is going on?
Say that again. What would be your -8?
Well, Cunha, if he's out, I wouldn't go to Raul Jimenez because this is the opportunity to get Alexander Isak in. So it would be Cunha to Alexander Isak, and I would just take the funds out of Gordon 1 week, bang gone, and he would go down to Ahmad.
You couldn't sell Gordon before Ipswich, could you?
But I'm bringing in Isak. The better Newcastle asset. But this is all hypothetical. Cunha's going to play and score and give us a parting gift. So
plums on you, mate. Plums on you. I like it. No, it's I like the fact that your team's so different to mine and Hibbo's. You can tell that you wildcarded at a different time, and we obviously mentioned, didn't we, about your triple Brentford and like how it just looks so different. And Gordon, I mean, that's brilliant.
I will just say, can I just say,
no,
I obviously am rolling. I'm not making any other transfers. Obviously, if Cunha plays, and prediction time. 3 green arrows in a row.
Ooh.
Oh.
Just putting it out there.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's all well and good saying that when you're sat at 2 million, mate. When you're sat at 200k, that's ballsy. Right. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the community team talking about ballsy. The community team got 54 points in game week 16, which was a 36k green arrow, and they're now at 665k. They used 2 free transfers to sell Lewis and Mbuemo for Trent and Enzo. So again, they were down based on their things, and they've got rid of Lewis as well, which is interesting. But up to 600 odd K, I think that's pretty good from them, considering they were floundering like I was not that long ago. So they've done very, very well to climb up. Their team's looking good for the future as well, I would say, with Palmer, Jackson, and Enzo all sat there ready for their fixtures coming up. So their team is looking good, I would say. But they do have a Cunha problem that will occur at some point. But well done, community team. You are still doing very, very well. Right. Let's go back to the intro screen. You can chuck in your questions for us. We went on a little bit longer tonight. We had some good discussions about quite a few players, actually. But you can chuck in as many questions as you like, and we'll try and answer as many as possible in the next 5 minutes or so. I had over 600 people joining us tonight, which is absolutely lovely. It's the most we've had for a while, so thank you. I'm assuming that is because there's no Champions League, there's no fixtures on, anything like that. But we do appreciate all of you coming in and watching us. Sorry about the slight little sound issues at the beginning. We seem to fix those quite quickly, so thank you for sticking with us. Let's have a look. SO saying selling Gordon before Trent. Look, people are not liking Trent in the chat. You wait. Leicester at home, another 24-pointer coming up. Just a dad posting stuff. Keeping Cunha when Isak is available. It's a bold position. Could argue foolish. Not really. Not if he plays this week. I don't see why that's foolish personally. Michael Scott, if on wildcard, who would be in your front 3? Go on then, Hibbo. Who would be your front 3 if you were on wildcard right now? And I know you're going to say Haaland.
No, I couldn't say Haaland.
I know, I'm joking.
I would say Isak, Raul Jimenez.
Ooh.
Maybe João Pedro.
Oh, yes, of course you said
guy,
Pedro. Of course he has. FPL Marshall, would you play Enzo or Rodgers this week, Nacho?
Enzo or Rodgers? I think you'd have to play Enzo.
Yeah?
Yeah.
AL says, do you like Enzo or Ahmad or both? I know we mentioned it before, and if you didn't listen to that, make sure you go back because we did talk about that in a little bit of detail. But Hibbo, I know I asked you this before, but just in case people are only listening now, who would you pick out of Ahmad and Enzo?
Enzo.
Yeah. Nacho, FPL Rank Chaser, evening Matt, says, best cheap replacement for Cunha next week that's not Raul Jimenez. Would you go Wood, Wissa or Evan Nielsen?
Ooh.
So it's like a isolation pick. I actually really like Wissa. Wood. He is just boring, but you know exactly what you're getting with him. So I would pick Wood of those 3.
Yeah. M. Dye says, who do you think does better 19 to 23, Munoz or Robinson, Hibbo?
Oh.
Tough ones tonight.
19 to 23. No, I get the tough ones. Nacho gets the really easy ones. I'm going to say 19 to 23. I'm going to say Robinson. Yeah,
I think I'd go there as well. Forster says, will Jackson start all the games over Christmas, given Chelsea have 2 teams? What do you think, Nacho?
I think we will see another Nkunku appearance at some point. Yeah, definitely.
I agree with that. They absolutely ruined me that they didn't play their normal second team in Europe. Was it last week? They played absolutely wild team, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. We literally played our 3rd team.
Yeah. Oh, the fact you've got 3 teams. Jonas says, what's your thoughts on Gavardio, Hibbo?
I actually think he's a pretty good. I was talking about him with friends on WhatsApp at the weekend. I think he's the kind of player you could just put in your team, and you could. I think you have to be patient with him. He'll get the returns, and maybe with the fixtures, the clean sheets come. I think I'd be surprised if Man City stay as crap as they've been long term. To be honest, like, can't keep going. I guess.
Abhishek says, "Who's the best keeper for wildcard apart from Raya?" What do you think, Nacho?
Oh, best keeper. I mean, Onana looks okay as an investment. I think he's been pretty under the radar this season. Outside of that, I mean, most defenses have been pretty poor. I probably would say maybe Henderson at Palace long term.
Interesting. There's two I go for straight away, and that would be Alisson or Pickford, because you got that double coming up. You're not going to want to change keepers. I think you go for one of those two personally.
Do you know what Arnie slots at some point?
Yeah. Oh yeah, forgot about that. That's true, actually. I got to keep remembering that. Michael Scott says,
what's the joke? The joke is you have to keep a slot for slot.
That's a good one.
I like that.
You know, it's a good joke when you say this is a joke before you say the joke. Michael Scott says, "What's your favourite Christmas movie?" We'll finish off here. What's your favourite Christmas movie? We'll all say it. Hibbo, your favourite Christmas movie?
The Grinch.
Which one? The original
First
or
one.
the animated?
No,
The animated's good.
no. The animated one, not that very old one. I like the animated one.
Yeah. Nacho?
There's only one. Jingle All the Way.
No way. That's my favourite as well.
Yes,
wow.
thank
I love
you.
Jingle
It's
All
the
the
most
Way.
underrated one ever.
Yeah, I genuinely I was going to say it as if like nobody's ever heard of it, but yeah, no, Jingle All the Way is my favourite as well. Turbo
Jingle
Man.
All the Way, 100%.
Yeah. Lovely stuff. Right. Thank you so much for everybody for dropping in your questions, and thank you for joining us this evening. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I think we topped out at about 650 there, so not bad at all. Thank you so much for all those people that are listening afterwards, and also those people listening on the pod. We appreciate each and every one of you. Nacho, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Hope you enjoyed yourself.
No, pleasure as always, fellas. I think I've had a little bit of a breakdown this one, so it's been good to kind of get back to normality at the end of this.
Good man. And Hibbo, thank you so much for joining us again. Hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope you enjoyed being back.
It's been great to be back. It's always good to chat to the boys on a Tuesday. So hopefully green arrows this week.
Yeah. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we get some more green arrows. This is the start of my renaissance, and I'll be top 1 million by January. 2025 is going to be a good year for me. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you all again next week. Bye-bye.